Other political news, you have the SEC having a rule that means companies must report cyber attacks in 4 days. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this is done in practice. And specifically, the United States Security Exchange Commission approved new rules that require publicly traded companies to publicize details of a cyber attack within 4 days of identifying that it has a, quote, material impact on their finances, marking a major shift in how computer breaches are disclosed. Now, they also continue to say, quote, whether a company loses a factory in a fire or millions in files in a cybersecurity incident, it may be material to investors, unquote. This coming from the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, which I do agree with. Now, Gary goes on to say, quote, currently, many public companies provide cybersecurity disclosures to investors. I think companies and investors alike, however, would benefit if this disclosure were made in a more consistent, comparable, and useful way. 110% agree. Now, the key pivotal term that is going to be the topic of many litigation cases, and I suspect, is the word material. They say they have to, within 4 days of identifying a material impact, which that's not, legally speaking, that's a terrible term because it's not quantifiable. And part of the issue is that it's hard to quantify some of these things. You look at Target when they were hacked, they had a huge drop in sales. It was it had to do, the hack was around credit cards, and the consumer confidence dropped. So people are using cash. People who use cash, they spend less on average because they feel the money, it's more real to them than a card. Ironically, it's fiat money, so it's really not worth anything. But psychologically speaking, it is a phenomenon. And a lot of these companies don't have mechanisms to measure that. It's very hard to quantify. If you get hacked, let's say you have a purchase order and that customer stops. So instead of a company selling, I don't know, 1,000 wristwatches for $1,000, it gets found that they're hacked, and the company that was going to buy it from them canceled that order. In that case, there's a very quantifiable amount. Hey, they lost that specific sale. However, how many sales or prospective sales did they have in their sales pipeline where they are having conversation with the retailers that says they're going to buy their watches, and because of that perception, they're no longer having those conversations. Some would argue that was a decrease in sales because of that brand reputation loss. But there's not an exact equation you can put in there because it affects every business differently. Some businesses get hacked and no one cares. Panera Bread famously was hacked. Yeah, consumer data actually got broken into, and it was hilarious. No one cared. There were actually jokes on the internet saying, "Oh, laugh out loud, someone will know my favorite sandwich or bread bowl or whatever they sell at that carbohydrate factory." But you have other instances of hacking where the businesses were basically kneecapped. Target lost millions upon millions of dollars because people shopped there less and not at all because of that specific hack. Then you have to ask yourself, how much does it damage the brand? So there's a lot of things that you can't really quantify. But I do agree, cyber attacks are a huge I also own a tech company that mainly does cyber security, Topic Technologies. But it's one of those hard things where we'll have prospective clients ask, well, the CFO wants to know what's the ROI? Well, it's hard to say. We can tell you the average cost of a breach in the past 12 months. There are studies that show that if you get hacked, this is the average cost you'll incur. But that doesn't tell you the cost of the brand, which, as cliche as it sounds, there is a huge astronomical value to a brand of a business. And that can be hard to quantify. So it'll be interesting to see, as this rule rolls out, will it be contended in court where they say, well, this specific instance, we didn't think it was going to have a material impact. So a couple things to roll out. It'll be interesting to see. I'm sure some investors, of course, are going to appreciate more transparency. And I think as businesses become more and more tech savvy and they're more and more dependent on technology, it's almost a cliche to say, but every business is a tech business. They just don't know it yet because it helps propel the business. It's not just what it used to be back in the day where it was kind of thought of as a sunk cost or kind of a necessary thing just to have on, like keeping the lights on. Now it's the cornerstone and sometimes the center of the business. So it'll be interesting to see, as investors start to take that into account, how this new political rollout will take place. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of August, so I'd really appreciate you taking time to click that subscribe button. Also, taking the time to comment and like the video really helps it out. It gets shared more and more. The more engagement we'll have, the more we'll be able to invest in the channel, get better production. I appreciate the feedback especially. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.